Alright, in this video here we're going to be covering installing the rest of the fuel lines as well as the fuel filter, the external fuel filter. So if you have followed along with my videos here and you saw how I did the gas tank, how I hooked up the fuel lines and ran new fuel lines through the tank with no fuel filter in the tank, this is how you're going to want to do the rest of the setup here. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I mentioned, let's go over our tools real quick. You'll need a couple small zip ties, your fuel filter, a high flow one. If you're running a bigger sized motor, this is a GP 460 motor. So if you're running one of those motors, you're definitely going to want to run a high flow fuel filter, and a couple pair of cutters. If you look right here, this is the choke. I went ahead and I removed that just for the purpose of this video, so you can see and hear a little easier the two right here. These are your two fuel lines. We're going to be hooking them up. This is the choke, and I removed the choke lever off of there. So I'll go ahead and get into the video. If you look right here on one of my fuel lines, I've marked it with blue tape. This one that particular fuel line is the lower one. It's kind of hard to see in here, but if you look in here, that's going to be the lower fuel line. That's where you're going to want to hook up your fuel filter to. The upper fuel line is going to be a return line. So I'm going to go over that here in just a second. So I know I mentioned in one of my videos how I typically run the fuel line just around it and up. In this particular video, I'm going to run it the way GoPed does it, and I run it through the center of the motor mount right here. So go ahead and we'll run those through there, and we'll pull them out this back side right there. Go ahead and hold the camera right there. Go ahead and push our fuel lines through right there. Go ahead and pull them out. Make sure it's not binding up back here. Let's see here. What we got going on? Pull those back through and get them adjusted a little better. Alright, there we go, that's a little better. Yeah, I was having a little binding issue back there, so you want to make sure, let's come around, look over here real quick. See how the lines have been ran clearly through there, nice and smooth. Coming around here, they're nice and clean out through there. And now we've ran them right through here, nice and clean. You can see that, and we're going to want to mount these or keep these up away from our tensioner bolt here when we're adjusting our chain tension. But let's go ahead and look right here now. Hold it up right there. Okay. So now let's see which line we got. Now this is going to be our return line, the one that has no tape on it. The one that has a tape on it is the lower fuel line that's mounted to the gas tank. So we're going to go ahead and install that one next. The return line is this lower one right here where the primer bulb is, where it comes off. So that's going to be our return. Now if you look right here, I kept these gas lines to 2 feet, so you have plenty of excess on here when you run it through. So what you're going to do is kind of size it up the best you can and go ahead and cut it. So we'll say probably right about there is where we're going to want to cut it at. Don't cut it too short, you're going to have to run new fuel lines, and that's no fun. So we'll go ahead and cut it right there. We'll hook it up right there, slide it on there. We're going to grab our black zip tie. We're going to zip tie it on there. Just a small black zip tie. You don't need a big fat one. The small ones will do the trick. You actually don't even need to put zip ties on there if you don't want to. I do just to ensure the fuel lines stay on there, because the last thing I want is a fuel line coming off and hanging there and spilling fuel out the side of my engine of my scooter, and also next thing I know it's on fire possibly. So nope. So we'll go ahead and we'll cut that fuel line, or that fuel line, the zip tie on there. We'll cut that off. So you see that's nice and clean. Just keep it over here on this side so you can see. You're not going to see anything on that side. Alright, next we're going to do is, if you noticed I haven't installed the fuel filter yet, there's a reason for that. So we're going to go ahead and install our next fuel line and cut it, we'll say about there. Now this one right here, if you cut it a little bit too short, it's okay because you got our fuel filter we're going to be installing next. So let's go ahead, install that guy. I mean, you can install the fuel filter first. This is just the way I do it. If you guys have different ways you want to do it, that's fine. I'm just showing you guys the way that I would like to do it. So go ahead, tighten that up on there. Go ahead and we can pull it tight a little bit too. Make sure you don't pull on this right here. Make sure you keep your fingers tight around that. If you're gonna take your zip tie and pull on it, you don't want to crack. This is just a cheap little plastic piece. You break that, you're basically buying a new carburetor, and that's like 70 bucks. So you don't want to break that plastic piece. So go ahead and hold it on there. Just pull your zip tie a little bit. Cut it. And next here we're going to be installing our fuel filter. If you guys are interested, this is what the fuel filter I'm going to be using. It's a high flow. It's a large, diameter. It's designed for the bigger motors. Now there is no particular right or wrong way to install this. There's no arrows or anything like that on it. So you can actually install either way. But if you ever do take it apart or remove your fuel filter, make sure you reinstall it the same way, or you're going to have to take and open your fuel filter and clean out your internal screens in there. So just keep that in mind. So the way I'm going to do it now, after I got my line fully installed here, on the upper part of it right here, probably I'd say, I'm guessing 3/4 of the way up, just above your brake caliper, is where you're going to want to install your fuel filter, just to keep your fuel filter away from your brake caliper, but best you can. You can install closer on the fuel line to the fuel tank if you like. This is just the way I do it again. So we'll go ahead, we'll cut it just about, we'll call it right about there. So cut our fuel line. We'll install this end first, right here. Go ahead and work it on there. Make sure it's fully on. So, got that on there really good. Now we're going to go ahead and install our other end. But if you look right here, you're going to have a bit more excess because you're taking up, was that ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch thick fuel filter. So you're gonna want to cut just a hair off the fuel line. Sorry, cut off the fuel line a little bit so everything stays nice and proportioned. Your fuel lines. If you're, meticulous like me and you want everything even and lined up right, that's just what I do. So you're gonna take just a hair off of it. So go ahead and cut a little bit off. We'll go ahead and reinstall the other side of it here. So get that work done. They're a little difficult, a little rough to put on, but get them slid on there, and we'll go a little bit more. There we go. So we call that good. Now what I like to do now is take another zip tie around the fuel filter. If you look on this particular one, it's got a nice little center groove in there. And I like to put my zip tie around there and kind of keep the fuel filter and the return line, the other fuel line, zip tied up against each other, and this keeps everything nice and clean and together. So go ahead and we'll do that. You can even zip tie around the edges right there and there between the two fuel filters. Personally, I don't do that. The fuel lines stick in there very, very well. I just don't do that. If you want to, go ahead, feel free to. Go ahead and cut that. And if you look down here, our fuel lines are kind of rubbing. Let's spin it around here. See a little better on here. If you look right here, the fuel lines are roughly up against the brake caliper a little bit. Go ahead and hold it right there. If you look at our rear brake now, see how it rubs on there a little bit? What I like to do is just pull the fuel lines back through a little bit. If you look now, perfectly fine. If it hits a little bit on there, you're fine. Even if it rubs on the caliper, just a tad, not a big deal. You can even take a pair of pliers and bend that down like that. See? No, it doesn't even touch it at all. So, there we go. And I believe that's it I have for the install. If I'm forgetting anything, I'm sorry. Oh, let's go ahead and we'll put our choke back on there. Should have removed that for you guys in the video to show you, but basically it just clips on and it clips right back off. So, real simple and easy to do. I typically remove that, you know, when I'm, you know, installing the fuel line. Just makes it a lot easier. So, hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, you know, as always, you know, shoot me a message, post up, and I'll be happy to help. So, there you go. Thanks for watching.